Og så kan jeg sige velkommen til denne workshop, og I'll right away talk in English because I think that both Ron Davis Alvarez and Maria Westvall is joining us online as well. They will join us in half a minute or so. Og indtil da, så kan jeg jo sådan set godt tale dansk. Velkommen til.
Tak.
Tilbage.
Tak.
Henrik Goldschmidt, det er, jeg kan jo lige invitere til, at skulle der sidde nogen, som får lyst til at stille spørgsmål, så er man meget velkommen til at skrive på Slido. Jeg skal nok tage spørgsmål videre, så bare skriv på dansk, eller på engelsk, eller på svensk, eller lige hvad I har lyst til. Så indgår det her i denne her workshop, som jo altså er en dialog. And there you are, guys. Welcome back. Ron Davis Alvarez and Maria Westvall, and they're both pointing to their ears. They have no sound yet. It will probably...
We cannot hear, I think.
No, but we can hear you. And shortly we will be able to hear all of us. Yes, the sound is good. And with you, Maria, as well? Yeah, welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. This is a dialogue, actually, for the next hour or so, perhaps hour and a half. We invite you to talk to each other about your presentations. I know that you are all very curious about each other's work, and I have invited all the participants in the meeting to ask questions and comment a long way. So that will be probably my role in this, to contribute with some democratic voice in that way. But I know, should I perhaps, Henrik Goldschmidt and I just had lunch, and we talked about how the approach is so different, and at the same time, of course, the same, despite the differences and the cultural, groundings in Sweden, in Venezuela, in Denmark, and you go abroad, all of you, to work, and you meet the same youth. I think you said it, Ron, just before. It is the same. People are the same. Youth is the same all over the world. Could you tell me more about that?
I get very inspired when I saw the presentation of Henrik. Even I guessed so many of the pictures and of the Danish. But I realized that when Henrik was talking and when Maria was talking, she was talking about Brazil, and then Henrik was talking about Bosnia and all these ideas. I was just that we are all peoples, human beings. We want to make the better thing for others, and that is something that I realize in kids, in the face of kids. It doesn't matter if the kids is speak one language or another language, or probably having a culture which is more quiet than others, but in the heart is always the same way of dream, of play, of be creative, of enjoy life, of be curious, because kids are curious and they are seeing the world and in another way that the adults see it. So that's why it's important as an adult, remember to be a kid always. So I really get inspired. I have a question, because I get inspired by some moment what Maria was mentioning, how integration and also to be citizenship and artists are combining together, and I agree complete. I mean, I really, but maybe I would like to hear more, because when you are a kid, you don't think too much in that way, and how as a teacher we can really, bring that idea to kids, or think in a global citizenship way. That's very important, must say.
Yes, Ron, I agree with you. And I think, as you say, that when we are kids, we don't think so much about it. And perhaps we should maintain that approach a bit, because so we don't divide our lives so much from doing what is important and necessary and playful and bringing us together at the same time. And I think that you are a very good example on that you have traveled around the world with I mean, but you had one idea and you use it in different ways and in different contexts. But I think just by what you talked about, by being, have this approach that this is something playful, this is something you want to do and want to share with others, you want to work in a way so they can continue working and work with peer learning and so on. I think that's a way of integrating something that is both very, you can have a lot of possibilities to feel a sense of community, be able to use your self-expression, but learn new things all the time and do it in a playful way and do it in a musical way. So you're really part of that. So I think that I don't think we have to divide life so much about what is, for the societal good and what is, just being a citizen and being like the groups that I showed from Brazil, for instance, who are out playing in the streets, in the schools, or in different areas, just to be visible, just to share music and invite others to participate. I think that's a very important part of our society. And I think now, more than ever, everybody noticed this when we are so locked in a way because of the current situation. And just initiatives like that is so important as part of our lives.
I don't know if it happened to you, Henrik, but and Anja or Maria, is happen sometimes that you have this idea, you want to make a really good for the kids and have a really good class and make this community better, and then you stuck with a big wall of bureaucracy and curriculums who will send you like in a big far away where you really want to accomplish, and then you try again, and then your next jump to the wall is even harder. And it's, for me, and I guess Henry, I have more experience to that, and all of you is like you're striving and moving on, and then you feel that these curriculums sometimes become to an square, to don't give you a possibility to think in other ways. Yeah. I have that feeling, but sometimes I try to breathe to say, okay, let's try again. But I don't know if you have experienced a moment you feel that, because I quite experience a lot of that. And I guess that many of the kids and young people who are coming to university now, they feel it that they want to do new things and then is stuck into a square.
And you talked about it in your presentation as well, how you are met with, this is not our priority at the moment. We're not supposed to teach kids music in the current situation. We have some other things we want to do with them politically. And we talked about it, Henrik, as well, as we had lunch, how the minister mentioned that now there will be done some projects in 10 projects you mentioned, and you said, but we're doing that already. How come we have to start all over again?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would like to compliment you both on your fantastic contributions. I have been very inspired, and I would like to, if I can, comment on a few words that you said, both of you. You make it sound so easy. We just bring children together, and they are happy no matter who they are, and they don't care, and they play music. But in my world, that is not the complete picture. If I go from Israel as a Jew from Israel to Palestine, and I hide my identity for a long time, and I just tell you the short story, then there is a student that doesn't speak English, but she spoke Hebrew, so I start teaching her in Hebrew, the Jewish language, and all of a sudden, all the other kids, who are you? Yeah. And I said, I'm Henrik, are you Jewish? Yes. And then we had a problem, because now they had to accept a new world, and we had to sit down and actually, this was not kids, this was teenagers. We had to sit down and have the conversation, which is very important.
And you had a label on you at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. I was the enemy, and I agree. I was the enemy. So I came from a different world that they, of course, are raised not to like, even to hate. So at that time, we had to stop for a moment and not just playing music, because that was not in that moment possible. We had to have the conversation. We had to sit down to basics. Do you want to continue this? Is this a way to go for us, or do you want me to return? And we agreed to the fact that we should continue, because we could not be the best friends in this moment. But at least we could agree on this thought that no one, not I, not they, could decide where they are born, in which culture they grow up, but we can decide how to behave. So that was a crucial moment for me in the collaboration between me. And afterwards, after this discussion, we had an even better relationship. And now I'm protected by friendship. So now I can return in the summer and go to Nablus, to Jenin, to Bethlehem, to places where I could not go because I'm protected by friendship. So that's a very important goal for me, to reach the level where we as musicians and as teachers are respected even though we are different and even though we are the enemy. So that was one thing I wanted to say. I'm like Ron, I'm banging my head against the wall every day. I know exactly what you say. There are so many things to solve, so many problems to solve, and not all children are friends. It is not so in my world, in my school. We try to do that, but there are Palestinians who grew up with and there are Jews that grow up in a world where they're not used to being together. So when there is a war going on between Israel and Gaza, it inflects my school. It inflects the kids. How do we solve this? How do we just say, oh, we can be friends? It's very easy, but it's not only that way. We have to deal with the fact. We have to have a solution for this.
You just mentioned a really important things that I just said in the presentation, that music itself will not make that change. Just sitting one by each other is true. It will not make that easily. And is something that the communication, but also the process of doing it because they're coming from the culture that maybe the kids even don't know why they hate each other, but they're coming from the culture of the parents say to them, and then the past has been saying to them, and they grow in that way. And I also experienced that when I was in Venezuela as a kid, that you come in from an area where it's difficult, and somebody coming with a good education, and I say good education because I've been through the university, and think coming to a school where the community is in dangers. I mean, it's not easy just to come and say, I'm going to teach you music, just enjoy life, and this is beautiful, because it's not working in that way. That person has to learn from. That's the moment when you say, before play, let's meet, let's understand each other a little bit. And I agree with you, Henry. It's not that easy process as it sounds or look later on. And still, I believe that we have so much to work to make that bridges between.
Maria, what are your thoughts on that?
No, and I think it's really good that you bring it up also, Henrik, because I think interestingly that the three of us have been in the same area to work with music, but I think it's really important that we talk about this. And I talked about like having a community of practice, having something to share in common, which means actually like making music together or have like musical goals together is a way of actually doing something together if our backgrounds have something more in conflict with each other. And I think what you're talking about is kind of friendships that you develop when you were in the Palestinian area, and the friendship was also because you had something to contribute with, you have something to share with, and I think that is so important when it comes to music, that we have this kind of inclusive approach, because we can get to know each other by musicking together and see other parts than just the political struggles and things like that. So I think also it's important to take part of a musical practice with a diverse group, with people with different opinions, different backgrounds, because doing creative things and do it together, it's also a lot of risk taking. And by being part of a musical practice, you can also learn to actually extend the borders for what is, the common things to do. And I think by doing it musically, we can do that. And that's also important part of citizenship. We also have to be citizens, like both of you, Henrik and Ron. You are struggling with perhaps bureaucracy and obstacles in what you want to do. But I think you are good citizens because you're actually doing something that you know is good for the citizens, even if there are like bureaucracy that stops you.
Henrik? Yeah.
Very good point, Maria. I also want to talk about my experience. If you're going to meet people, like said, I come to the West Bank and I'm meeting Palestinian children. It was very important for me to show that I am a student too. So they were teaching me some Arab songs, and they loved when I tried to do that because they could laugh. They could say, "Wow, he's really, really bad," and this makes a much better atmosphere than if I come and say, "I will teach you how to play Beethoven." I mean, that doesn't make any sense, because why should they learn Beethoven in Jenin if they don't want to learn Beethoven? We must find a way. So I learned the melodies that we thought was good, and some of them were Arab, some of them were Jewish. In the end, we could not tell the difference, but they loved when I was making myself ridiculous, if you understand, that they could laugh at me, and I was trying to sing a song like with quarter tones, and they said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. He's so wrong." And so it's like a game when you're just putting as a person to serve the friendship. To show that you are a weak person too, that you are not coming as a professor in the old idea that you are teaching one way. I'm sure, Ron, you have had the same experience.
Yeah, you talked about the vulnerability, Ron, in your presentation.
Exactly. I think we have to be aware that to be vulnerable is nothing bad. It's something that we have to move in a comfort zone, that we are open to make mistake. When we are learning, and to be a student for example, as Henry said, I have the same kind of situation working in a refugees camp in Lebanon with the Palestinian, and actually I learned some Palestinian music, but then I said to them, I will teach you some Venezuelan, but also I will teach you Beethoven with a Palestinian turn. Yeah. So we did quarter tones and things like this. And it's happened a lot too, that we think about vulnerability. In our mind is coming refugees, is coming asylum seekers, is coming immigrants, but it's happened a lot that we have vulnerability into our countries or the countries that we are working. In Sweden, for example, I have many students who are they don't have self-confidence. They come in from a family with a constitution, parents and a good education thing, but then some of them need a support and they learning from each other. So I think it's a very important that we mention this, that vulnerability is not only for the people who is passing trauma or is passing a crisis or passing situation by the culture or political reason. Because we also find vulnerability and trauma by familiars or situation, and it's happened a lot in Scandinavia. My little experience living in Sweden, the kids feel like not secure or going from, or don't feel like supporting to speak out something or information or something they want to dream for. So then is when I feel it this how important is to become a student in your classroom as a teacher, because you have to be vulnerable to be able to connect with them at the same time to learn from each other. That's something I experience quite a lot every day in my life.
It's interesting, and I think it takes a lot of self-esteem, perhaps, as a teacher, to approach in that way as a student or a learning person, or in your words, to make yourself ridiculous. Actually, to stand up and be vulnerable, and we're not very good at that, because we tend to stay in our comfort zones. Maria, do you think that working with your students, is that an approach which will be welcomed?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of young people who are students now, they are really open for an approach like this. They are very aware of, insecurities and, the importance of being a kind of community and to support each other. So I think many of the students are really open to this approach, and they want to contribute with their knowledge and also share knowledge with others.
Henrik, you mentioned at some point how you struggle with the fact that you can't accept all students in your academy, and you have to, of course, pick and choose, and you think that it would be wonderful if you could perhaps embrace everything. Yes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts is that I need the foundation, the financial foundation to get more children and young people to go to my academy. Because we are now limited to 206 students in Copenhagen and 40 in Aalborg, and that's only due to one fact, that is what I can afford from the private sponsors I have got. I'm working. This is the wall I'm banging for now 10 years. The political wall that I think that my school and all these things should be also publicly funded, because I think it's a very, very important job we are doing for the society. Because some of my very, very fantastic students, they would have a different life if they hadn't met at the school. Literally. We are making a book at the moment at the school where the children are reporting their experience. And that is not a job where they are sort of moved by the teachers. They're doing it completely independent to write their experience, good or bad. Okay. I want to have criticism also. And the students, especially the very weak students, they are writing about their personal development. You were speaking about getting self-confidence, and so many of the students have reached a much higher level of self-confidence and being much more hopeful in their life. And this is through the music, but it's through the friendship and the support and the stability, which is very important. That's why I don't like projects. I'm not in favor of projects. I like stability. If you have to change the children's life that are living close to our school in an area of Copenhagen, for you it's maybe not so well known, but it's called Nørrebro Nordvest, where there is a very big cultural, social mix, and there is a high rate of crime and people shoot each other in the streets. That's really true. That's what they've been doing. So in this area, it's very, very important to get the children out of the gangs. Yeah, I'm talking about literally getting people out of the gangs.
You're talking about a boy
we have examples
had a career goal of joining a gang. Yeah.
We have examples of young immigrants who are very tempted to go into the gangs, and we have succeeded. We have succeeded in creating another way. Which and music is just a sort of a mean to that, because it's such a fantastic mean. But this is an incredible success for me. That's the reason why I keep banging every morning a new wall, because not for my sake, but for those kids who maybe can change their future. We don't change it for everyone. Don't think that we're a Walt Disney story. This is a tough business, but we are changing some people's life.
Ron, you nodded your head, because of course you feel the same. You travel the world, and sometimes you have the funding, and sometimes you don't. How do you cope?
Yeah. Actually, very good. One of the biggest challenges that many programs have in Europe who are doing social projects or involved music, they are funded by private. Some of them by social. For example, here in Sweden, El Sistema is inside of the culture school, so is funded by public. But for example, Dream Orchestra is funded by private. We have been, but so to be sustainable with funding is almost impossible, to be honest, because you have to apply every 2 years for a project. So, and to be able to measure an impact, to make an evaluation what the work that you are doing, to evaluate data and really make a resolution what the results have been doing of the project, you at least need 10 years, at least, to be able to really make a really good resources who explain how it's been your project. Because of course you get the results in a month or in 2 months and you see the impact already, but you need to compare this with a different group of people and things like this. And many projects are facing right now that is kind of easily the difficult. It's easy to kind of create the program sometime, but then it's difficult to keep it because the sustainable of the budget, it has to be from private, and then it's too difficult to get the money for. So this is something we have to have in mind, how these projects in our countries, in Europe and in other countries can be sustainable, because it should be funded by public.
Right.
Maria, many of your students will go into public work or be paid in the music schools in the municipalities, but do you share the worry that pretty much important job is not funded like that?
No, but Maria, sorry.
No,
go ahead. It was for you a question. Sorry, I was just thinking was asking me. Maria.
No, I was actually going to add something to what Ron said as well.
Yeah.
I think, and Henrik, because we shouldn't overlook the fact we were talking about artistic citizenship and artists as citizens as artists. And I think this is an important thing, that to be part of an orchestra or a group like those of Ron's and Henrik's, or those I've been working to get or researching on in Brazil, it's actually that those who join them, they have a role, they become somebody, they are a musician in the group, they are an artist in the group, they have a role, which can be very important in compared to other possibilities to be recruited to other areas, as Henrik mentions. And this is very typical in Brazil, and that's also the reason to why there are many of those social projects, that this is kind of an alternative to what is offered otherwise in order to be somebody or to have a role. And to have a role in a group or an orchestra or a band, then you also have a big responsibility, but perhaps in another way than with a criminal purpose. And I think we really need to think about that. And that's also a very good reason to why, I mean, these kind of initiatives that you have done and you have established is so important, and we have to see that as part of our society, because young people need to feel that they can contribute, that they can be somebody, and some of them also needs to be seen to actually present what they do, to perform, and this is a good way of doing that. And I think that Ron also talked about when it comes to genre, because I think especially in the Scandinavian countries, we want to be very up to date. we would think that young people only like to have a certain genre of music, otherwise they are not interested in playing music at all. But I think it's exactly what Ron said earlier also. It's a way you actually approach music and teach music and involve people in music, because many young people are curious, and they are curious in musical diversity as well.
Yeah. Ron, you wanted to add something?
No, very good. Well said. I just remember one student, the season he started in the orchestra, in his Instagram, he puts his name and then he say an Alvarez, and that because they already empower, because to feel nobody and to have a possibility that an Alvarez. Or I have a girl, she's playing and the trumpet, and I'm saying, I'm a trumpet player. You know, this and this way of saying I'm a studied trumpet and I'm a trumpet player is empowerment. Already they empower the music as part of there. So that is something that we have to take care. Because imagine that one day you say I'm a violinist, but then some years later you cannot continue. And then because it's no more financial or no possibility, and then you will say, well, I was a violinist. You cannot take this out from there. So it's an important just to have that in mind.
Yeah, you don't teach an instrument; you actually suggest an identity. Yeah, that's quite a challenge. I mean,
Yes.
or a skill to,
Yes.
as a teacher, to suggest an identity. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I experienced that briefly in my introduction. 6 years ago, very, very close to 6 years ago, we had a terrorist attack in Copenhagen. Two rather important persons were killed. One was Finn Nørgaard, who was attending a meeting of free speech. And I was in Israel at that time, and I heard it through the internet, and I saw it. I was very worried because at that evening there was a party going on in the synagogue where a young girl was having her bat mitzvah confirmation. And in the evening, just behind the synagogue, we have the Jewish house. There was a party where children from my school were attending. And then I woke up in the night, and there had been shooting outside the synagogue. And I woke up my father and my wife, and we went to the first flight home, and I discovered it was Dan who was killed, who was one of my... we knew him, all of us knew him, because he was the guard, he was the doorman. And the children, they have been taken away by the police in safety cars, and it's been very traumatic. And then Dan's father asked me whether my children could perform at the event of the memorial service in the synagogue, where all the political parties were introduced. I told you briefly about it. But at that time, my children came in. I say my children because I have the feeling it's my children. And they are the poorest children in Denmark. They come from very bad backgrounds. And they were singing for... Are you still there?
Yeah, I think
okay.
the sound is there at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the point of my story now is that it changed the identity of the children. Because they were standing in front of cameras and the most powerful politicians in Denmark from all the political parties. And there were priests and there were rabbis and imams. And they were standing and they were singing. And everyone was joining. They made everyone sing together.
Wow. So the audience actually participated.
I turned round. I didn't even ask the audience. They were singing Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. And everyone was joining. And I tell you, everyone, also the imams, the priests, and the rabbis. And since it was a Palestinian who killed a Jew, this could very easily have been encouraging hate.
Yeah.
But the children who were also Muslim, Jews, and Christians, standing hand in hand with their kippah, the Jewish yarmulke, we call it, and the Muslim children covered, and they were singing together, and they were the poorest children comforting the most powerful in the society. That changed the identity of this generation of children who participated in this event.
It's a very spiritual experience.
Yes,
if not really
but
religious.
They were proud.
Yeah.
And you know, to make a child proud, you cannot... This is a very interesting pedagogical, I cannot speak English, pedagogic principle.
Yeah.
You cannot praise a child into feeling better. If a child doesn't feel he did his best, you cannot tell him, you're fantastic. He won't accept it. Only if he feels he has done something special.
Yeah.
Then one word of praise is enough. And afterward I could say, I'm proud.
Wow.
And that made this generation of children have confidence that can only be given by doing.
Yeah. And they took some responsibility to comfort adults.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They stood there without any... they managed to sing even though there was a huge pressure. Now you're going to sing.
Yeah. And we actually lost the
connection,
the online connection to our Swedish friends, but they might come back. And since they're not here, They will be here in 3 minutes, I'm told.
But then we can sing a song with all the people out listening.
Ja, altså, og det er jo det, så kan vi lave en lille regibemærkning, fordi mens vi sidder her og holder sådan en musikpædagogisk konference, og vi er mange hundrede mennesker samlet på afstand, så er der pludselig nye restriktioner på vej. Så det der med at være en lille håndfuld, det bliver ny normal fra i morgen. Så hvis man skal have et lille orkester kørende, så er det maks 5 mennesker, Henrik, fra i morgen. Eller fra i eftermiddag, og det kan det jo hurtigt blive.
Altså, vi har jo desværre lukket på min skole, Goldschmidt Musikakademi i øjeblikket. Ja.
Og vejret er jo heller ikke rigtigt til at mødes udendørs.
Man kan tage en sneboldkamp.
Ja, det kan man gøre. Det kan med musik.
Hvis man står langt fra hinanden.
Ja, det er rigtigt.
Og kaster forbi hinanden. Ja. Hold dig fast.
Ja.
Nej, men det er jo svære tider under omstændigheder. Det er også meget svært for os. Vi har gennemført online-undervisning, men det er altså sværere. Det er også et socialt problem. Ja. For det er altså nemmere, hvis du sidder i dit eget værelse, end hvis du sidder i en storfamilie med 5 søskende i det samme rum, og så skal lave online musikundervisning. Det siger sig selv, at det er meget, meget svært at holde fast i den samme interesse. Ja. Men det lykkedes os i foråret, og jeg håber virkelig, at vi kan holde fast.
Og det er jo interessant, fordi at alle har jo lært Philip Faber at kende, og det store synge sammen i fællesskab på stor afstand, og man kunne måske godt grine lidt af det som udgangspunkt, men det har virket fællesskabsskabende.
Det har det.
Kan I adoptere nogle af de der tanker hos jer? Altså vil man kunne spille sammen og synge sammen i din skole?
Altså, vi har desværre måttet erkende, at det med at spille sammen over Zoom eller Teams, det er næsten umuligt, fordi der er en indbygget forsinkelse, så man kan aldrig få det til at være helt sammen. Og vi var jo super entusiastiske, specielt i foråret, og vi prøvede alle mulige idéer osv. Men det fader altså lidt ud. Der kommer en internet-træthed. Og så er det meget svært at holde fast i. Vi gør alt, hvad vi kan, men vi håber først og fremmest på, at vi snart kan komme i gang i en eller anden form. Ja. Men nu virker det så som om i dag, at det bliver... Det
er lidt tungt. Det bliver nok lidt tungt de næste par måneder, som statsministeren siger.
Ja, og jeg synes noget, der egentlig er allermest sørgeligt for os, det er, at den daglige kontakt med børnene, som specielt vores lærere har jo. Jeg i lidt mindre grad, men jeg har dog kontakt til nogle af børnene. Den forsvinder jo også, når man ikke kan mødes fysisk på skolen. Ja. Man kan jo se på et barns bare måde at gå på, eller smide skoletasken på, om det har været en god dag eller en dårlig dag. Ja. Og der kan der foregå meget over Teams. Man kan heller ikke få de personlige samtaler på samme måde.
Men kan man mødes om noget andet så? Altså, I plejer at mødes om musikken, men der er også et stort socialpædagogisk arbejde, eller i hvert fald socialt arbejde forbundet med det. Kan man have samtaler? Du siger, at det er jo også individuelt, hvor meget I egentlig får spillet musik, og hvor meget I så taler sammen. Ikke?
Det kan godt være, man kan det. Det må jeg sige, det har jeg simpelthen, den tanke er ny for mig. Jeg tror dog, det er min erfaring, at samtalerne opstår, når man er sammen på en mere naturlig måde. Og derfor har jeg for eksempel på et tidspunkt givet vores vidunderlige korleder, Fatma Sidan, som er egyptisk, og har arabisk som modersmål, har jeg givet hende noget ekstra løn, fordi hun altid var den ekstra mor. Og det vil sige, at hvis der er en korpige, som efter kor har behov for lige at blive hængende en halv time eller en time, for at få noget rådgivning, og bare snakke med et menneske, som snakker modersmålet, så er det jo meget, meget vigtigt for os. Men det er jo noget, der kommer sådan... Men hun ser måske også Fatma, der er en, der ikke lige har det så godt, skal vi lige... Det er altså svært at få den kontakt op at stå. Men det kan da godt være, at vi skal til at lave en lille opringning en gang om ugen og høre, hvordan går det hjemme hos jer. Det var da en god idé. Ja,
der er i hvert fald nogen, ved jeg, skolelærer, som tænker, at det er meget vigtigt for nogle af de børn, som man ved er udfordret i forvejen, og som hvis hjem kan være hårdt belastet af situationen. Ja. Så vi sidder jo her og tænker, kan vide om Alvarez kommer tilbage, og kan vide om Westvall kommer tilbage. Vi tror det ikke. Der har været lidt knas med internetforbindelsen, så vi må se om
så det er op til os to.
Om det er op til os to. Altså, og du foreslog før at spille lidt musik, og jeg har lovet, og vi kan få dem igennem på lyd. Then we could say hello to Maria Westvall on the phone perhaps, and Alvarez. Ron Davis Alvarez. Yeah, I think you will join us in a moment on the phone. No, well, it doesn't.
But anyway, there were still
happen.
Points that we could discuss until the connection is established.
Ja,
you asked me a question that I never answered.
Men vi kan tage den på dansk, fordi det var lidt med også at få telefonen
det er dejligt. Du spurgte mig en lille smule om min holdning til det her med, at der er givet, Kulturministeriet har givet millioner til nogle projekter. Ja. Kan du huske, du spurgte mig om det?
Ja, det gør jeg.
Og det fik jeg aldrig helt svaret på.
Nej. Men det du i hvert fald sådan talte om, er noget af det, som jeg ved, at også mange musikskoler sidder nu og overvejer. Ja. Hvad betyder den der 1 års bevilling? Det kan jo være, det må man jo også sige, benefit of a doubt, ikke? At det kan jo godt være, at det er begyndelsen på en lang række af årlange bevillinger. Ja. Men indtil videre er det jo altså næste års finanslov, der er tale om. Ja.
Og der er det bare min erfaring, at der bliver sat rigtig mange projekter i søen. Og her snakker jeg ikke om runs, fordi Ron er jo en mand, som virkelig holder fast og laver nogle, der er meget langvarige. Så søger han igen, og han er stedet, og han banker. Men der bliver bare, det er min observation, der bliver lavet mange projekter, som løber i 1 år eller 2, så kommer der nye politiske ledere, og så ændrer det sig, så skal der sættes nye projekter i gang. Og det bliver sådan en lang række af projekter. Og jeg oplever, at der er unge mennesker, der ikke gider være med i projekter, for de ved godt, at det bliver for kommunalt. Altså det er som et
1, 2, 3.
Okay,
1, 2,
you're back.
3.
And now we have the sound, I can tell. It's
So
Maria
jeg vil bestemt ikke tale det
Westvall and Ron Alvarez joining us again. Hi, and now we have your pictures as well. Wow. It's so cool.
We're back.
Welcome back.
We're hear you in YouTube. I just changed to you to follow the conversation.
Oh, that's good. But actually, you missed the most emotional part of Henrik's story about how it played off in the synagogue. And,
we hear a little bit, and then
we were just talking about the identity that you are giving your students by calling them violinists, or they call them themselves. And I was just telling Anja about how students from my school, they got an identity because they were able to sing on a very tragic occasion when we said goodbye at the big memorial for Dan. They were singing, and everyone was joining in, from the prime minister to all the political parties. So they were getting an identity. They were actually able to comfort some of the most powerful people in Denmark.
You just mentioned that you should not say to the student, this is really good, if they know that this doesn't go through. And that's underestimation. That is what happened a lot to the teachers. They just say fantastic without, I mean, they know if it's going away, but of course you also need to be careful sometimes how to guide them in that process. I always have really admiration for my students from Greenland. I have a possibility to be teaching in Greenland and also in the Faroe Islands, and also have possibility to work in Helsingør in Denmark for some time. And one of the really inspiration, especially I got from my Inuit students, it was they are really brave, and they really always want to. When I was saying something in Spanish, they was repeating in Spanish because and that's something that in my mind in that moment, it was not. I will not speak Spanish because they will not understand. I was doing Spanish because I was no way to speak with them because I didn't speak English and I didn't speak Danish. So I did in Spanish, and they would follow me. And if I think in my mind, no, I will not be able to do it because they will not understand what I say, then I underestimate them. Yeah. And that's very important that we don't make that to the kids, that we don't believe that they cannot do things.
Yeah, so we dare actually to have ambitions or to trust in them. Maria, you nodded your head. You recognize that?
Yeah, I think so, because there is a lot of potential, and I think that's important for us as educators and as musicians also to actually think about that we integrate with each other, because it's actually this, that we also need to see the potential in each other. As you know, it can be student and teacher, but it could be teacher and teacher, student and student. Yeah. And I think this is a good example. Don't underestimate the other, because the other can really contribute with something in your life as well. And the curiosity, that's really important. And I think that's an important part of life, that we are not limiting ourselves and others. We try to see the potentials in all kinds of meetings, like Ron is talking about here.
Yeah. And we have a meeting going on here as well, so I have to invite you to join us on Slido. So please write me in English, in Swedish, in Danish, anything, and I'll I'll pass on the questions or the comments. So take the opportunity to ask my guests what you have on your mind. Ron, let me ask you, Henrik, while you were offline, Henrik told us that the way you work with projects, trucking on and insisting on this is the way of work for you. What does it take to become this? I called you, I think, the embodiment of a passionate teacher, but I think it's more than that. You have this vision or idea that this is how I manage, or this is how I work with the kids. What does it take? I mean, it's so interesting.
I think passion is coming in connection to belief in the thing that you are doing. If you don't believe in what you are doing, it's difficult to be passionate in what you are doing. So you first need to believe that you are there to give a message or to learn something or teach something. So it's important that you first believe in that you can do it. That's number one. The second one, I must say that you believe and that you can transmit that to others. That's important, because you can believe and I know this knowledge, but if you don't believe that you can transmit it, then nobody's gonna get inspired. And the other thing is not to think that you know everything. You just, it's important that you always feel that you are learning. You are learning all the time, and even you are learning from your student. That is something that I passionate teacher. I can describe. I can see it. And other thing is feelings. If you don't show your feelings in a way of your movement, a way of creating then the possibility to read you, because some of the kids don't really read you by what you say, but they read you how you move, how you present ideas. It's communication. So that is actually what creates the passion into your thing. Just love what you do and show to others and inspire others true to what you do. And then that is a passionate teacher for me.
Maria, let me finish by asking you, in your job, your new job as a professor in this house, or well, in the other part. Yeah. How can you nurture that approach Ron talked about here, that you actually find yourself learning as a music teacher, for instance, or as a teacher in general, or musician, or human being in general? How can you facilitate that in a house like this?
You mean for those who are going to teach?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of factors. Being in an institution where we actually have, in our case, we have performers and producers and composers that are possibly going to teach in different situations and locations in our society. And I think it's important for them to really think about their artistic potential and how they can use it in meetings with others, and how they can, create new ways of working, but they can also go deeper into ways that they really like and appreciate themselves, and to be curious and to be inventive and creative. And that we as a higher institution also encourage that in what they do. And I also agree with what Ron says, that this kind of combination, it's a combination of both having, people who inspire you and also can give you ideas about traditions and ideas of how things are or have been, in combination with creativity and new ideas. And this together is a way, for our students also to feel empowered, both to have a kind of broad knowledge about the area, but at the same time being able to be creative and being open to all possibilities to work as an artist in our society. And one part of that could be to be a teacher or to lead a group or ensemble.
And Ron, you
Maria,
have something on your mind, I can tell.
Yes, yes. It's connecting to what Maria said. It's also the connection with professionals, like professional orchestras, professors, teachers, with a student. We have to build that bridge because many of the students or many of the kids probably never been in our professional orchestra. And to have a possibility to, for example, I like always to do project with the student from the bachelor or master program with my student, because also I see that they see this role model more close than to see another professional orchestra, you know? So I like always to try to make connection in this orchestra from the universities, professional orchestra like Gothenburg Symphony or the Royal Stockholm, connecting to our programs, because we have to work all together. It's not like a university in one side, professional orchestras in another side, culture school in another side, Suzuki programs in another side. No, we are all moving to the same current, and it's to make this community and this society better. So we have to work together. I mean, we have to really find this way to get inspired by role modeling.
Thank you.
And that's also, I think, the way we work. Our students also have a kind of, especially our master students, have an external module where they really, find different practices where they can work together and learn together with existing groups and projects like this. So I think that's really important. I agree.
Thank you for your most inspiring words and work, and good luck with your projects and your teaching and your music. Thank you so much, all three of you.